Okay, so this is video 3 of our layer cake quiz beginners quilt, which is designed really for beginners and for people that maybe want to go back to basics. So we need to do a couple of more blocks. We've done all of our small blocks, which the small blocks were these ones. That one, that one, that one, that one. So basically they're the small blocks that we've just done. So we will be putting them together at a later date into a bigger block. So now we're going to move on to what we call our hourglass block, which that's an hourglass. That's an hourglass. So basically we will be doing 4 hourglass blocks. So we need 2 black 10-inch squares and 2 red 10-inch squares. So I'm going to use the same as it has in the pattern here, which is these 2 black ones. And I think it was one of these. I think it's this red. So I'm going to make those ones up. So what you have to do, it's saying here, cut each of the 10-inch squares into 4 5-inch squares. So it's basically the same as we've done with the last half square triangles, but then we will add them together to make it look like an hourglass, a timer glass. So I'm just going to do one, and then I'm going to show you what I mean. So we'll cut these into 5-inch squares, making sure you line up the side, line up the bottom, so you get a nice square and not a wonky square. So you're going to end up with 4 of these blocks. As you can see from this quilt, they're in the corners. Whoops. Okay, so I've not quite cut through there. So if you're gonna, sometimes you just use your rotary cutter and just cut it. But it's good practice to get in and line it all up so it's all correct, and then you get a nice cut. All right, so that's that one. And you've got this black. Line up the edges so that you don't get any uneven squares. Line up the edges again. It's better do this. All right. So they're all cut, and then we will put one of the units together and I'll show you what the finished product is. So we're going to make a half square. It says here, using the instructions for the half square triangle, make up 16 half square triangles. So we're going to do the same again with all the half square triangles. So put the mark on the back of the black, which is easier to see with the white chalk. And so we've just got to make up 16 half square triangles. I'll go ahead and do all those, then I'll come back and show you what the hourglass block will look like putting it together. Okay, so you can see I've done 4. I'm going to just prepare one of these hourglass blocks, and then I'll do the others later. So I've done 4 half square triangles, and if you look at the way they're set up there and put them in the same pattern as the actual pattern does. Okay, now they are No, that's not it. Okay, so you can see that it's an hourglass. All right, so basically you have to sew those two together, and then when you've got two lines, then you can sew those two together. So I'll just show you how to do that so you get a really nice point. So it's really important to use that when you're cutting and trimming off these lovely half square triangles so that you get the seam going right into the corner and you get a really nice finish. If you don't use that and you just cut off like excess on one side or two sides, you'll often get that this seam will be coming off to the side of it, and then you don't get this lovely hourglass finish in the middle. It's all about points in quilting. So we've got the 4 half square triangles, and we're going to okay, and then we're going to sew together this line, the first line, the second line, and then those line together. So I will sew these together. So you can see these two seams, they're coming up into the corners. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you get those seams in, and that when you sew it together, it's going to look like that. Basically, when you open it up, the two seams are going to be lined up. So get yourself a pin. Once again, put it through your seam, pin it through your seam, check on the other side and see if it's actually on the seam, and it's not. So move it slightly over on the back, push it through again, and it's not again. So it can be a little tricky to get it to line them up. That feels like it's going through. That's it. That's through both seams, both on the front and on the back. And then push your pin through, making sure that it once again goes through both the seams, just so that the seams are lined up. Right, so that's fine. And I'll just again check that I'm going to be sewing this the right way. Yes, that's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew this up. Look, it's a good idea as a beginner to pin it. I'm not pinning it. I've got a fair bit of experience. I wouldn't say I'm the most experienced, but I've got a fair bit of experience. So I'm going to sew that until I get to the pin. Very slowly. You can very slowly go over the top, but I'm not going to. I'm going to pull that pin out because I've wrecked many a good needles, expensive needles, going over the top of them. So as you can see, that's not lined up. So if you have a look at that, it's not lined up. So I actually won't accept that. See the down here? I won't accept that. So I'm going to unpick that. So I've unpicked that, done a bit of reverse sewing because I do like my points to look good. So I've sewn those two together, and as you can see, that's starting to look like a hourglass. Now we've got to put these two together. So what we need to do is we need to iron the seams. So turn the blocks over like that, and I want one of the seams to go this way and one of the seams to go that way so that they'll lock together. So picking this one up, you can see that's kind of automatically gone towards that side. So we'll just iron that out. Get it nice and flat. And then put it back in the same spot, the way it was. And then we want to iron that this way. So we'll iron it that way, get it nice and flat. And then the seams will lock into each other, and it'll look so much nicer. So that's it. We'll just turn it over again. And then we're going to sew that to that. So we'll put it together, and then lining up the seams with the locking. So as we've talked about before, you line it up, make sure that the two seams, the front and the back seam, are lining up. So you use your pin, put the pin through your front seam, yes, and look at that, it's exactly through the back seam. So then bring it up, just check that, yes. All right, so we're going to sew that together and hopefully it'll look two nice points. So we'll sew those together with a nice 1/4 inch seam. Now it's going to be pretty bulky going through here, so slowly, slowly. Don't go like a bat out of hell because you'll find it'll jump all over the place. So just take it slowly. And I'm going to sew right up to that pin, and then I'm going to pull the pin out. And slowly, slowly over the top of that bulk, and then finish showing it to the side. Let's have a look at these. Look at that, lovely points. So that, I'm going to give it an iron on the back. Iron it nicely, nice and flat. It's all about precision with your ironing, with your cutting, with your sewing. And if you get it all right, you'll get lovely blocks and they'll all go together like a jigsaw puzzle. So there's your hourglass block with lovely points. So that's our next block. That's our conclusion of block number 3, hourglass of our layer cake quiz beginner's quilt. So go on further to block 4 and we're going to go right through this quilt. So if you want to have a look and do it with us, please do. Thank you.